B.O.D National Park, not here. I haven't seen it out of the mountains. That was enough to sneer. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I worked with him on the King County thing. Good to get the piggyback right.
Christine?
Yes. It's on. Yes.
It's on. It's on.
Good morning. We're calling the meeting to order. It's 9:30. We do have a quorum present with Director Perkins, Director Bill Herman,
Mr. Bill.
myself, Dan Sullivan, Deborah Isaacs, and John Holt. Also present is our Executive Officer, Richard Lawrence. With the quorum having been established, if we can now have a moment of silence, please stand. And now for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first order of business will be the consent agenda. Is there anything in that agenda that any director would like removed from it? The first item would be acceptance and approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting August 15th and a special board meeting August 23rd. The next item of business is the Secretary's report from Secretary Maria Perkins.
Good morning. I received 8 complaints against an employee of the fort, which I gave each of you this morning before I sat down. And I believe that those are better discussed in executive session as they pertain to an employee. I also received a couple of other letters, one praising Mr. Sullivan for a dispatch that he wrote on August 16th, and another one also referencing something about executive session that probably should be put there. And then Debbie got a couple of suggestions out of the suggestion box. One asking us why we don't have our minutes posted on the website consistently, that they stopped in 2017 and were sporadically put 2017, and so we're being asked why. And I don't have an answer for that, so I figure someone else here might. And then there were a couple of concerns regarding the cleanliness of the front office with regard to the bulletin board and some other appearance issues. So that's all I have.
Okay, and both the letter from Mary Brown and the letter from Kathy Worm, you feel should be taken up in executive session?
The one from Kathy Worm, I mean, unless you want me to read the whole thing, I don't think it's pertinent to read it right here. But no, I don't think that needs to be taken in executive session. The one from Ms. Brown, yeah, I feel like that's more appropriate discussed in executive session, since she's alleging that something from executive session is being put on Facebook. So unless you want to hash that out here, but I don't think that's appropriate.
All right, that's fine. I'd like to thank Kathy for her letter. It's a very nice letter. Appreciate it. The treasurer's report will be next.
Okay, our actual bank transfers for the month of August were Texas Community Credit Card account, $33,561.36. The Texas Community Checking account, $8,964.65. Texas Community Money Market account, $2,465.98. The Brackettville Bank and Trust General Fund, $68,156.27. The Brackettville Payroll account, $1,031.88. The Bank and Trust Restricted Fund, $396,734.74. The Los Morris account, -$43.92. Subtotal of those is $510,870.96. Then we have the Fort Clark Historic Building Preservation Fund for $18,645.53. The Fort Clark Hail Damage Repair Fund for $24,185.20, for a grand total of $553,701.69. On the actual bank transfers for the month of August, there was transfer of $95,602.50 from the Bank and Trust checking account to the Bank and Trust payroll account. From the transfer, there was a transfer of $1,901.59 from Bank and Trust checking to Bank and Trust Los Morris account for Pro Shop and the Lounge Beer and Liquor. There was a transfer of $19,495.05 from the Restricted Fund to the Bank and Trust checking to reimburse General Fund for motel renovations and expenditures. And there was $73,932.05 from the Texas Community Credit Card account to the Texas Community Checking account to fund operating expenses for the month of August.
Thank you, Debbie. We now have the executive officer's report. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. President. It'll be very brief. Just a few things that I need to report to you. First of all, the notices of the assessment increases has gone out, and as well as all of the coupons to the membership. If anyone has not received them, I would ask that they contact us so that we can mail those to them. The computer server installation is underway and it should be completed by Friday. I'm looking forward to that. The motel, installation of the motel's Direct TV is also underway and should be completed this week. I have spoken with Rio Grande Electric, and they have agreed to come and do an energy audit of all of our buildings, as well as the locating of all of our meters with GPS coordinates, and to identify what each one of those meters actually is metering. So that's going to be very helpful. I have to tell you that the brush pickup is going to be delayed because of the flooding out at the pit. The roads leading into it, you can go in, but you won't get far, and then you can't have to be pulled out. So brush pickup may be delayed, but we're trying to get that done as fast as we can. Household garbage can no longer be brought out to the dump. We have to put it in a container and have the container hauled away. Again, because of flooding, they just can't get to it. They can't cover it with the dirt. And finally, in the next line on the agenda is Mr. Randy Castillo from MUD. I've asked Randy to come and visit with the board and to bring them an update on the grant application for the wastewater treatment project that is underway. So that completes my report. And
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Could you put that out in a dispatch so the membership knows
You
about the
betcha.
trash and the brush also?
Yes, ma'am. I've got it down.
I've been hit up about the brush, so, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you, Richard. I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Next up is Randy from MUD to give us an update.
You want me to come up there?
Please.
Would you please, Randy, so everyone can hear you okay?
First of all, thanks for having me this morning. The reason Richard asked me to come up and address you guys about the grant proposal, is the board aware of where the wastewater treatment plant is? Behind the red bridge back there. We have a 40-acre pond system wastewater treatment plant, and after the treatment, it's 4 ponds, and after the treatment process is completed, the treated water is used to irrigate the golf course. In situations where the golf course doesn't use enough water to keep the ponds from being full, we discharge into Lost Moors Creek. Now, every 5 years, MUD and the city share the wastewater plant, of course. So every 5 years, we have to apply for a discharge permit to discharge the water into the creek, even though we hardly ever do it. In 2015, when we applied for our proposal, it almost didn't go through because the water quality standards for the state of Texas have changed. So they pretty much restricted the months that we can discharge and whatnot. So we started trying to come up with a way to do something other with the water than discharging it into Lost Moors Creek. When we do our application in 2020, we're pretty sure that TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, is going to tell us that the water quality standards no longer meet to be discharged into Lost Moors Creek. So by working with Roslin Group Engineering firm out of San Antonio, we came up with the idea of a retention pond on the golf course, 10 million gallon retention pond on the golf course. And just so y'all know, it's not going to be an eyesore. It's going to be, it's going to have aquatic life to it. We're hoping a solar fountain in it and stuff like that to make it, nice, not an eyesore. We have heard from Rural Development. USDA Rural Development is the one doing the grant proposal for us. We have heard from them. Unfortunately, we haven't heard enough for them that I have numbers to give you at this time. There's a company that works with Rural Development called Communities Unlimited, and at this time they are the ones putting the numbers together to see how much is allocated for each project and whatnot. So that's really all I've got to give you at this point. When I do have numbers, I will come back and address it again.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I do. So how does that grant work? Is it money that we get from the state and they give it to us to build this pond, or?
Everything's actually going to be in Bracketville's name because the wastewater plant is in Bracketville's name. And Bracketville added a few things to the grant to be done on their side. Well, actually both of us did, but MUD kind of we've done a lot of ours in-house. We've already coated the inside of our tower, upgraded some of our electric panels and stuff, but they want to do some things in Bracketville as well. So, like I said, the numbers, well, how much money is allocated for each project, I don't know yet.
Okay, and then I don't know if this is a question for you or for someone at this table, but what does that do to our common property? Because aren't we supposed to have a certain acreage? I'm kind of looking around the table because I don't know the answer to that either. But if we allocate for a pond, does that take away from the acreage we're supposed to have in the declarations?
If I can
No.
address that. Actually, I think the area that the pond would be constructed on would actually be some kind of easement granted to either B.O.D or the city or whatever. So actually the easement granting would take away your common ground. It'd be for the retention pond.
Oh, so the easement will take from
I believe so,
the
yes.
common property. Okay, thanks.
Any more?
Yeah, you said 10 million gallons?
That was the proposal, Debbie, and,
Yeah.
and the proposal for it was $1.8 million. But once the numbers are in, maybe we decide to go something smaller. What we did when we were at the state, we took the water that would be, say we were a foot over capacity at the wastewater plant, through the whole plant, it was 10 million gallons. So we figured that's where we got the number for 10 million.
Do we know how deep and how large an area that would consist of, or do you
Actually,
even
not
know?
till the
You don't
engineering
know. Okay.
comes in, we'll find out more. And like I said, I'll keep you guys updated. I'll keep coming back to you and let you know where we're at with this thing. But, we've got 2 years to figure this out, but I'm pretty darn sure, and my engineer as well, when we go back to get our discharge permit in 2020, they're not gonna allow us to discharge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're trying to keep the horse in front of the carriage and trying to address it before it gets here, so.
They get stricter and stricter about
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
water dumping.
We almost didn't get it in 15,
I
so,
know.
Thank you, Randy.
thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Just a brief comment on the common ground question. I'm not too sure it takes away from our common ground because actually it would function, probably be considered an enhancement to the golf course, and it does not decrease the size of the golf course in any way, or does it impair the usage or functionality of the golf course pool? That maybe is a question that has a little more discussion needed at some point in time. Thank you. We now move to committee reports. The first one is the airport.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
The airport committee had 3 visiting aircraft and pilots this month. All were guest port members. One stayed at the motel 2 nights, occupying 2 rooms. Airfield maintenance. 22 hours were spent this month mowing, and mowing is currently ongoing. $466 was spent from personal funds on mower maintenance, gas. Another $102 was spent from personal funds on new signs to replace the yellow wooden ones on the fence, as well as a new Fort Clark Springs airport sign with the aircraft wings and identifier. The Laughlin Air Force Base student pilots will be volunteering to paint the hangar. I lost my place, sorry. Once the supplies are gathered and they're ready to do the painting. The contract landscape company that's mowing has mowed the overgrown area this past week, and we'd like to thank for including the airport in the contract. The overgrown area only needs to be mowed twice a year. Not something that has to be done every week or month. Airport committee needs to know when they're mowing so that we can mow at the same time. And this was passed on to Philip through the board liaison. Yeah, help me, Bill.
Liaison.
Yeah, liaison. Also, $1,700 was spent for personal funds to purchase a airport loaner car. In the past, pilots lent their golf carts to visiting pilots so they could explore the fort to see what it has to offer. Now we have the ability to let them use the dedicated loaner car. We also had insurance costs of $400 for registration and $100 for taxes, I guess. And that was also from personal funds. We also have an upcoming event, would be Airport Open House, and we're looking at hosting before the end of the year. The open house will be for fort members and their guests, attend free of charge, and we'll let everyone know when the date is when the Winter Texans get back.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Next is the Architectural Committee.
I'm just going to stay here. We had 3 meetings in August. We approved 10 permits for painting, fences, sheds, and 1 new house. There were 4 letters sent out for violations to clean up, 2 for trailers parked on the street, and 1 for an ongoing yard sale, and another one for not maintaining the property. The committee is also recommending to the board the dismissal of one of our members for not showing up for 3 meetings and has not called. And we also need to find 3 new members. Anyone wants to volunteer? The black books over here are seriously messed up, pages out of place, out of date, not everything's in them. And I even found one thing on the website now where the Ford has it, that it's not in there either. So I don't know how that's going to be corrected, but anyway, that's a problem.
What are those black books?
They are the CC&Rs, but, and for instance, what has happened is we were having a meeting and we were looking at the book. Page I was reading wasn't the same page that the next person had, and turned out it was just totally out of place. And then the date on the CC&Rs for 38 is 2002 or 2001, and on the website it's 2002. So there's, you know, they need to be going through and figured out and find out what's even missing.
Mr. Lagness, we have other CC&R volumes too that we can we'll be able to sort through them.
So maybe we could get some new copies printed so we have them for our meetings on Tuesday?
I don't know if that can be done by Tuesday.
Well, it doesn't have to be done by Tuesday,
we'll
but I
get it
mean,
as soon as-
yeah,
as
so
soon
it
as
can
we
be done.
Sure.
And then a reminder to fort members that you need a permit to do any outside repairs, construction, painting, or landscaping. Permits for maintenance and repainting the same color are no charge. And then Tuesday, we also had a brief discussion now with all the rain about keeping properties cleaned up as far as weeds and cutting grass and whatnot.
Thank you, Joel. While we're there, Maria, have we made any progress on the CC&Rs with any of the groups?
Well, I received notes from Unit 1, and that's about it. I have read through every one of them that are online, and so I'm a little confused now that these books are here, so maybe I have to just sit here and read books. But each one has different criteria, and ultimately, depending on the unit, it depends on how the CC&Rs can be changed. They cannot be directed by the board. They have to be initiated by the members of those units. So
The members, or actually the Architectural Committee too, you could use them if you need help.
I didn't read that in any of the stuff I've read.
Well, it's in the declaration under Architectural Committee.
Well, I'll review that again.
All right, thank you.
Also on that, there are several units that have 2 sets of CC&Rs. The new ones superseded the old ones, but sometimes when you look at different things, you find the old ones instead of the newer ones in some of the CC&Rs also.
Yeah.
So that kind of needs to be, make sure we've got the current updated ones in our books for
Evidently,
architectural.
there needs to be done a lot of straightening out, reorganizing. Equine Committee. Morning.
Okay, the Equine Committee has not had a meeting since July. We are basically at a stalemate, I would say, with the horse club. The same people in the horse club are on the Equine Committee, and therefore if there's not an agreement, we can't do anything with the Equine Committee. It's just, we just can't do anything. The good news is that we have the second stall on the north side being repaired today. We bought the lumber for it the other day, and it should be finished as far as the carpentry either today or tomorrow. We'll start the process of painting, and then a couple weeks from now we hope to do the wire for both stall 1 and 2 and finish both of those stalls completely. The bad news is that the volunteers have indicated to me that they do not want to do any more work in the horse club with regard to repairing stalls. They don't feel it is wanted by the horse club, and they don't feel appreciated. So the combination of all that is coming to an end. I did remove this memo that was sent to me by Mr. Lawrence with regard to what we were going to do for work at the barn, because it seems that has come to a standstill with regard to the board and Mr. Lawrence's office. We are not getting any feedback, can't get a meeting, just doesn't seem to be anything that's of interest to the board at this point. So there's no point in leaving this up on the wall. So I took it down. I do have it here. It was addressed to me, so I thought I could take it down. What else can I tell you? There's just not much more we can do. It seems like sort of a waste of time for an equine committee. As you can see, I'm very passionate about repairing the barn, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, so we might as well just back off.
Linda, what can the board do to help get this moving and straightened out? Would a special meeting called between the board and the horse club and the equine committee be able to, you think, hammer out something? Or
if you think that would help, I'd be more than happy to participate in that, but at this point, unless we have something, I mean, I hear a lot of things that are going to happen, we'll get on it, and it doesn't happen. And we now have a new president after Mr. White's death. We have a new vice president. They have a completely different agenda than what we had designed with Mr. Lawrence and was on the wall. They don't think the barn needs repair. I don't think the barn will be there in a generation if we don't repair it.
okay.
I have some questions. First of all, thank you for your passion. You know, it takes volunteers like you who have passion to give into our amenities. So thank you for that. And I'm sorry that that you guys are at a stalemate. But if I may, what exactly are you trying to accomplish that is bringing you to a stalemate?
Well, this memo that Mr. Lawrence sent out in March.
To who? Who is that sent to?
It was sent to me for the Equine Committee.
Okay.
And basically it talked about that the barn has not been maintained by the current residents of the barn and the current officers of the barn. And it hasn't been maintained for years. And there are stalls in the barn that are different from other stalls. I mean, they're up and down because the Border Patrol did it, and that was fine. I mean, at the time, they were trying to help restore the barn in their fashion. Now, we're now trying to restore the barn in the fashion of 1939 when it was built. And there will be 2 stalls done that way as you walk in the barn. There are stalls at the other end of the barn that are absolutely horrible. I don't know how else to, I mean, they have seen no maintenance in years. And it reads in the bylaws that if your horse destroys a board in your stall or whatever, a fence line out in the paddocks, it's your financial responsibility to replace it. It's not the Ford's. And that has not happened, and continues still not to happen. Now, I was at the barn 5 years ago, and when I came back last year with my horses, when we moved back and bought a house, I couldn't believe the condition the barn was in. This is my personal opinion. You may not agree. But if you walk through the barn, I think you might. I see potential to return the barn in time. This is not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. It's going to take years. But to return the barn to somewhat of a decent state so that we could have open houses for our membership, so we could have little clinics for adults and children with the horses. We have a couple of older horses that are like big dogs, and they could come and brush them and pick their feet and walk them around and be part of, it's not available to the general membership on a regular basis because of the investment of animals and tack, but to be able to allow people to come and see the barn the way it really was in the old days it's a big project. But most of the horse club is fighting back. They don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want anybody in their business. They don't want anybody in the barn.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question to everybody else is, isn't the horse club contract coming due soon?
That's what I was just fixing to say. Isn't that up in September
The 29th, it needs to be resigned
of this year?
Yes.
So I have a question. I don't know exactly how it's operated. Y'all have members that
We have a
least,
horse club. We have
You have a horse
officers,
club.
And we have officers.
you have
And
officers,
they're supposed to be running the barn. And that's the way it's been for 25, 30 years.
okay, and then you have people that rent stalls,
Right?
but if something happens to that stall, there's nothing in place to,
There's bylaws. We went through bylaws up to Yin Yang for months last year and got them signed 100%. The problem is that the past 20 years, nothing or very little has been done to fix the barn. If your horse tore out a $40 board, they tack up something else. And in time, that stall has 15 boards tacked up it's just a shambles. So,
but there's no teeth in the bylaws that
it says you're
y'all
going to
can fine them or kick them out.
Well, there is actually. You must repair the board. You must repair the fence line. You must repair something that your horse has destroyed.
Yes,
Yet, it's never been enforced. So the barn has been allowed, as Mr. Lawrence's, since failure on the part of an individual member to comply with the terms of our agreement could cause the horse club as a whole to be in default because they're not maintaining the barn, and they haven't for years, and now they don't want anything to do with it because, and the deal is that he offered them a gift. We will take your rent and we will turn it around and use it to repair the barn on a monthly basis. That's what we'll spend. It'll take time, it'll take volunteer labor, and they don't even want that.
Well, I think that they were saying they wanted the fence done. The perimeter fence was a little bit more of an issue. So
that's something new that's come up since this. We may need some fencing, and I agree with that, but we don't need all new fencing, all new posts. We need a certain line or two repaired, but that's just another stall tactic to stop the barn from being repaired.
So I think at this point,
I think what we need,
I think that I wasn't finished.
go ahead, John.
So, what can we do to help you? Because it looks like that whoever's in charge of that operation, whether it's called a president or board of directors or whatever, is not taking care of their business. So, what needs to be done?
Well, this person just took over the presidency
last
month when Mr. White died.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that.
And when anybody ever came into this barn, they never took pictures of what the stalls looked like. So when they took over these stalls, they were probably just crap to start with. There has been new things put into place, and now before anybody takes over a stall, especially if it's a new one, there are pictures supposed to be taken. And whenever you leave that stall, it's supposed to be just like it was with that picture being taken.
Is this happening?
It is starting now, but that doesn't solve our problem.
And
Our problem is we have 60% of that barn in a shambles, and there are people in the barn who don't feel their stalls need to be repaired. And they never will. So my take on it, which is strictly my opinion, and I will take, there'll be feedback, is that we don't need a horse club to run that barn. The horse club can be there as a social function, so that they get together, whatever.
Right, yeah.
We need a barn manager, someone who's attached to the fort to make sure
that is done.
that is done and done correctly and the rules are followed. It seems to be an issue of, well, we don't really want to do that one, so we won't, and then nobody's going to make it stick. And that's just the way things are. They've been that way for years, and it's hard for them to see change.
Well, it looks to me like that y'all are going to have to decide whether y'all want to continue to take that with the club and the club handle it, or whether y'all want to turn it over to the fort and let them do it.
Well,
If I might interject, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. The Horse Club has sent over a proposed contract or agreement, use agreement for the stalls. It's time for the board to take a look at that and see if it's acceptable. If not, then we go into negotiations. It's also for the board to decide whether or not it wants a contract with the Horse Club, or if the board wants the association, the fort, to maintain it itself and to manage it.
Sure.
And deal with individuals and not with the club. That's a possibility. I would say that for the time being, and for today, we're not going to resolve this today. I would suggest that we take a look at that contract. I'll provide you copies of that contract, and we can decide how we're going to go forward. If we want a contract, then we can begin negotiation.
Sure.
My understanding is that the Horse Club is not interested in having the Equine Committee any longer, but that is an Equine Committee was formed by the board. It's up to the board to decide that.
To keep that or not keep
right,
that.
Right, so I think that we could pick this up again later.
Yeah, but any contract with anybody has to have enough teeth in it that if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then there's going to be repercussion.
you also have to have management or leaders in charge who are capable of making that happen.
Okay, I agree. I think we're gonna have to cut this off now. We've got a lot of things on our agenda. What we're going to need to do is probably make it an agenda item for discussion in the future, near future. And all of us can maybe gather a little more information and put our heads together and come up with some ideas.
We'll look at this contract.
Thank you.
We'll go over it.
Thank you very much, Linda. Golf Committee.
They haven't had a meeting, is all I know. I contacted the acting president of the committee, told him they needed to have a meeting. They're still, haven't got back with me on when that's gonna be. There is a golf tournament in October the 19th, 20th, and 21st. It's a Happy Cervantes tournament. That is a two-day tournament. Then there is the turkey shoot, which is an alliance with the Church Alliance as a fundraiser tournament, and that is the second Saturday in November.
Would you get me details so that I can post it?
I will try to do that. They need to have a meeting, and I told them yesterday that they really needed one. There were some other things that needed to be discussed. And I will let you know after they have that meeting.
Thank you, Debbie. The next one is the Preservation, Historic Building Repair and Preservation Committee bill.
Good morning.
The only two things I have is we had our last meeting on the 12th of September. The primary discussion about that was about the funding for the committee and how that's all to take place, which I know is a discussion that's going to be carried on later on today. The second thing is just waiting for the decision on whether to go forward with the awning for Dickman Hall, which I know is on the action items for today. So,
Did
Right.
you get the updated financials?
I did.
sent those to you in an email last night.
I did.
Okay, thank you. Linda, did you get?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have the Recreation Committee, which I don't believe has been in session. Is that correct? No one here? Recycling then.
Morning,
Helena.
everybody.
Morning.
I met with the school district last week, so we are going to get all of the school district's corrugated cardboard. So that is a biggie. And the reason is the last year, September was the last time we sent corrugated cardboard off. We got $5,500 for that. As compared to this July shipment that we sent, we got $194 with just, right now we're in the negative. We owe $175 because of the shipping. So I think we're going to be shipping cardboard within the month. So that'll be super. I think we have 35 bales right now, so we need another 10. Let's see, the back door of the recycle. The back door was really difficult to lift up. And for most of us, it's been a real trial. So we got Joe Aleknis and Charlie Stanfield, two-man job, and it's perfect. So I'm very happy with it.
Our thanks go to Joel and Charlie.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that was great. And I guess that's about all.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Helena. RV Park Ad Hoc Committee report.
Hi again. There you go, Dan. It was pretty busy couple months trying to hammer everything out there. Not everybody was on board with everything that we discussed or what we decided, but anyway, the RV park over the years has been one of the things that brought visitors to Fort Clark. Many RVers become homeowners on the fort after staying in the RV park. There needs to be a nice RV park to attract them here and then to buy. Most of the current rules already cover what we need. The rules need to be enforced and the park needs to be cleaned up. After the last board meeting, I was accused of not wanting diesel trucks and I wanted a manicured park. We do need a manicured park to draw people here. People aren't going to come visit unless we have a nice place for them to stay. Anyway, my comment wasn't about diesel trucks. It's about them setting and idling at 5 o'clock in the morning and late at night with no mufflers on, or construction equipment banging up the road at that same hour. I'd like to thank Pat Sullivan, Sherry Mitchell, Julie Welsh, and Pam Kersey for all their time and input to the committee. The committee also believes that the RV committee should be appointed by the board to watch, update changes, and advise as needed. This should include fort members, winter Texans, who have over the years contributed to the RV park, not only the RV park, but the whole fort with activities, maintenance, equipment, and picnic tables and more.
We're going to take your report that you submitted and share it with the entire board, obviously, and then we will try to merge the three ad hoc committee reports together under the rules and regulation, the renters, and the RV park. I see you have a pretty complete
There's more there than you asked for.
I believe it.
And
I should be more careful.
Mr. President.
Just one last thing. John Bridger, who has been one of the winter Texans who has done a lot in the RV park. I talked to him this past week, and he actually called in during our last meeting and had some discussions with us. And then, on top of that, his sister, Mary Ellen Miner, who is also another person, has done a lot for the winter Texans in the fort. They're not coming back. They're going to Arizona this year. So we're going to lose all her activities that she's provided.
All right, thank you, Joel.
Mr. President, let me also point out that the RV park now has a new manager, Mr. Kurt Partlow, and I am very optimistic that Mr. Partlow will be able to whip that RV park into shape.
I want to pass down this report. Maybe copies can be made and eventually get to each of the directors.
Also, doesn't the RV park have an RV park committee that is very active in the wintertime? Maybe we need to extend that through the summer also.
It's usually not winter Texans.
Yeah, but we have people that stay here year-round too, so just because the winter Texans are here part of the year, the whole thing doesn't shut down for the summertime.
The committee is just comprised of winter Texans.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, right now that is true.
board-
My committee was people that live here on the fort, except for Sherry Mitchell, who comes on the weekends. But the Winter Texans Committee is just the Winter Texans. And one of them has gone away now too, so.
All of those items will be addressed when we merge together the three committee reports and deal with them at that time. Thank you. The Renters Ad Hoc Committee, they've actually already submitted their report, but I see we have someone here. Mr. Fields has a comment.
Yes, I do. You all have a copy of our report, I believe. The reason I wanted to talk to you, though, is because we covered some things. We made some pretty major changes in the rules for renters. And the reason we did that is because we were looking at, first of all, well, I gave you the items, you know, to assure that the security team and administration are aware of who is here and whether, you know, whether they're homeowners or whether they're renters, to assure that the property owners are treated evenly and fairly. And this, since I have been here, what, maybe 10 years? Maybe 10 years, I have seen a gradual degradation of the rules. There seems to be a lot of selective enforcement going on, which is a consistent problem. We wanted to present the fort and what it has to offer in the most positive light possible. And we feel that the lot assessments are tied to membership assessments, and the membership assessments on rented property probably need to go with the rented property, so that we should not be making the renters pay an additional membership fee, because that travels with the property. In other words, it's already been paid for. And that's going to hopefully give the renters a more positive impression of the fort, and hopefully allow the landlords to keep people around a little bit longer, because the renters can see everything that we have to offer, not just some of it.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome. Do you need another copy?
No, we've got the original.
Okay,
thank you. Community Council.
Good morning. We've got a busy time coming up. Community Council had our first meeting of the fall, and it was well attended. Not everyone signed in, but I would say we have had approximately 15 to 20 members in attendance, including 3 board members. Thank you all. Ghostly tours, movie night, open house, Fort Clark days, and members' concerns were our main topics of discussion. I'll go through, hopefully real quickly, what we have coming up, and I'm predicating all this on the action item after this. So, I'm not assuming, but I already typed it out. So, Ghostly Tour dates have been set for Saturday, October 13th and 27th. We will start and end the tour at Rendezvous Park. The route has changed a little. They're adding the dog park in and some pop-up hauntings if we can get some high school and volunteers for that. We'll run the tours from 7:30 to 11. 3 tours an hour, approximately 16 people per trailer. People can register by text or email. There will be no haunted house this year, as Miss Conley is expecting a grandbaby, the nerve. So, this thing, so, you know, better planning. We will have a fire for roasting marshmallows, hot chocolate, cider. The FCA has volunteered to do children's activities at the pavilion at Rendezvous Park. We are asking for Dickman Hall to be haunted. And like I said, we're looking for students to help with the haunting. Volunteers are needed, as always, for poking the fire or serving drinks, and a bunch of stuff I probably don't even know about. There's a volunteer sign-up sheet in the back, just so you know. The second is the open house. We had one in the spring, so we're looking at doing one again the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, November 24th from 10 to 2. In concert with the art clubs and an arts and crafts fair. Made a great response and hope that all the clubs and committees and RV Park can participate again this November. Our goal is to give the membership an opportunity to learn about all of the fort has to offer, from learning about recycling to joining the Mountain Laurel Club by having information, all the information in one place for the membership to be able to see and look at and learn. We'll also be having a food fundraiser at that for Fort Clark Days. So save your turkey leftovers for Sunday. Sunday food on Saturday. I would like to thank Sandra Vance, Tiana Johnson, and Wendy Knox for volunteering to organize the event. If you would like to volunteer or help, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. Fort Clark Days Committee has met for the first time this fall. Things are well underway, and we are looking at different types of fundraisers. Volunteers are always welcome. There's a volunteer sign-up sheet in the back. And also our Heather Northrup is our volunteer coordinator for Fort Clark Days. She can be contacted, and her information is on the Fort Clark Days website. And then, I don't know if I want to come back to, let me finish, and then I think our Fort Clark Day chair would like to say a couple things, if that's okay. Or not. We're looking at a couple of fundraisers. Well, we're looking at ways to fundraise. I've lost my place. I'll come back to that. Okay, movie night is this Saturday, 9 p.m. and we are showing Peter Rabbit. This will be our last outdoor movie for the summer. The October movie will be held in the theater on Saturday the 20th. When we transition back into the theater, we do 3 showings, 2, 5, and 8 p.m. With more showings, we need volunteers. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. Whether it's for concession, setup, breakdown, we have different areas for people to volunteer. Also at our meeting, Sandy Perriman is looking into starting a club for seniors, singles, not a match-up club, just for camaraderie and such, and we're hoping that she'll come to our open house. We also had members' concerns at our last meeting. We are following up with Philip on some mowing concerns. Jan Metcalf and Carla Westbrook are looking into street lights and who owns them, whether it's Rio Grande Electric. An idea was brought forward to allow members who pay their assessments automatically, not from the fort, but through their own banking institution, if they could maybe opt out of the coupon books as a cost-saving measure, because they don't need them because they're automatically setting them from their bank. So we're bringing that to you. And then there were questions on when the new traffic signs were going to be installed, and we didn't have an answer for that. And lastly, due to time constraints, Susan Hughes has stepped down from the Preservation Committee, but Jan Metcalf has volunteered to replace her, so she will be the Community Council's new representative along with Sandra Vance for the committee.
All right.
Was there anything that needed to be said for Fort Clark Days?
We should probably give a little heads up as to some of the things that we're planning for Fort Clark Days, you think?
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to say it or you want me to say it.
Go say it. I'll say it.
Okay.
Elisa, just a second. Here is the agreement between the Fort and the Community Council.
Oh, okay.
For your movie night.
Oh, okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, everybody. We're planning a lot of fundraising events for Fort Clark Days this year. And before we do anything or have a confirmation date from anything that we're planning, we will certainly bring everything to the board for your approval. We've got permission from John Hope to set a booth up at Hunter's Roundup and have a lot of Fort Clark literature so that people there will know what the fort is all about. And Linda O'Brien has agreed to dress in period garb, and Phyllis Giblin has it's an old coach.
Little wagon, Ken's
Little
Stores.
wagon, yeah.
It's out in the lobby, can we
Yeah.
get that?
As a prop to set up for Fort Clark Days, if we may have your permission to use that over at the Hunters Roundup at a booth that we're going to set up.
I have a question, Sharon.
Go ahead.
Originally, we were going to fundraise.
Right.
And now a board member's asked me to bring pamphlets and stuff, which
Right.
I'm happy to do for the fort's
Right.
hunt, but do we have to buy the booth then?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So that's one of the things that we have planned, and hopefully people at the Hunters Roundup will be generous and drop a penny or two in a bucket, and that goes into the Fort Clark Fund. We're planning an event sort of like a golf cart poker run, which I think would be fun. Everybody goes from point A to point B, and
We used to have those.
yeah, that's what somebody told me. It sounds like a lot of fun. We're planning 2 dances also, which we hope we get, approval of. One dance will be the Friday after Thanksgiving at the RV park, and BYOB, chili supper.
No chili.
No chili, not chili that night. Anyway, $5 a person, and the bands that we've contacted are local. They've played here numerous times, so they know all about the fort. And one band may not even charge to play here because they know it's a fundraiser for the fort. And we're going to have a dance the Friday of Fort Clark Days, and we got permission from Russell Knoll for the band to set up on the porch of the Historical Museum. And there's a parking lot there. People can set up chairs or golf carts and listen to music. And
Well on your way, planning this.
we're getting an
Very
early
early.
start. Yes.
Thank
The
you.
earlier you start, the more money we can generate. So,
Very good, thank
okay.
you.
Thank you all very much. Is there anything else?
Okay.
We're good.
That's it. Was there any questions?
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Now, we have the opportunity for any members' comments regarding the action items, and you can simply come up to the microphone, state your name, and share your comment. Do we have any? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the action items. The first one is to approve the request by the community council for the ghostly tours, for the items that they need to use and have permission to use. All those details have been provided to us in advance. Do I have a motion to
I'll make a
approve?
motion to, that we should, let the community council have the, they're asking for some items and the days, and this is something that's going on for several years, and I make that a motion that we approve it.
The suggested motion I'm just reading here, which is helpful, is move to authorize a use agreement with Community Council to use Rendezvous Park and Dickman Hall as requested on October 13th and 17th and November 24th, 2018. The written request is to be made a part of the record. Would you accept that as your motion, John?
Yes, I didn't have that in.
Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Bill seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Well, I have a question. Sorry. I was reading this. Can I ask a question or no?
Well, we've already taken the vote.
Okay, well, then I'll just abstain from voting.
Well, yeah.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Abstain? Okay, 4, 1 abstain. It passes.
Mr. President?
For a matter of information, what is your question, Maria?
But,
I said, just as for a matter of information, would you like to ask your question you have?
well, no, not, since we're not in discussion for it, it's okay. I won't ask.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, the Community Council does want to know from the board whether or not it wants future requests to be made request by request, or to submit a comprehensive plan of all of their.
It's regarding ghostly tours?
Yeah, well, regarding everything having to do with the Fort Clark days.
Oh.
They have many plans.
Sorry?
Excuse me. They have many fundraiser events. Should they come to the board for each event, or simply present a single plan which covers it all?
I'd say present a single plan which covers it all.
Is that a consensus then?
Yes.
Okay. Does that help?
Everyone agree?
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
think Debbie had a question.
Looking at this sheet of paper for agenda summary items, there's some dollar amounts on here. Is this agreed upon or not agreed upon, or on the agenda summary?
Well, okay, I can answer your question. On the agenda summary, what I did was to repeat to you what this board voted for whenever we have a use agreement. These are the amounts of the usage fees associated with each of those. So what the board has just done is approved authorization of a use agreement with Community Council. Those details would then have to be worked out.
That was my only question here, because when I looked at this here again, there's figures down here. I thought we were just agreeing to the fact that we were going to let them use the ground.
You were agreeing to enter into a use agreement.
Okay, all right, just clarification. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Rio Grande Electric Co-op 5K run, which is one they have at night. It's a charitable run. All the runners they're all lit up. I don't know if that's the right word. Yeah, it starts over at Dickman Hall. No, they all have reflective things and all that. So their suggested motion is move to provisionally authorize the RGE Employee Club 5K run event in Fort Clark premises on the condition that insurance coverage is provided by them. Would anybody care to make that motion?
I do. I'll make the motion.
Mr. Herman makes the motion. Any second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, Director Isaac seconds it. Now, do we have any discussion or questions?
Yeah, how late at night are we talking about, and will there be people to actually be there to watch the people running at nighttime? Even though they are going to be lit up, however lit up they are, but I just know we've got a lot of people that are older in age, and if they're not aware of what's going on, there could be some repercussions as far as, oh, I seen that light, but I didn't know what it was or something, so.
We'll do our best to, I'm having allergy difficulties, I apologize. We'll do our best to promote their run. I don't know those kinds of details yet, they weren't shared with me, but what was shared with me is that they're working in cooperation with B.O.D. and Rio Grande employees will be along the roadside to watch for traffic, intersections and things like that. That's their...
They will provide the traffic control.
Yes.
And the later it is in that fact, the better it off, because if it's at dusk, you're not going to be able to see them no matter what. So time would be a very, darkness, I guess, was more like it, but yes.
Well, they're going to be lit up with glow sticks, waistbands, necklaces, and such. Okay, any further discussion or questions?
I have a question. So did they give an estimated time frame of nighttime? And also did they provide their map of what their 5K is going to be? Because my concern is when you have runners running, period, or anybody out at night on the streets, we're a residential area, and people are trying to sleep at night. So if we're going to encourage noise, I think it's in our best interest to consider the time. And well, I mean, to some people that are laughing out there, you know, people have children that go to school. I don't know what day October 5th is, but if it's a school night,
October 5th.
it's a Friday? No, but is that a Friday or a Monday? Is that a Friday? So then you've also got the football game and the traffic from that as well. So that's all my question is. Do we know exactly what time frame it is? Because the concern I have is the noise, depending on the route.
As I said, I don't have those details.
Well, then my other comment would be that I think before we're considering approving stuff, we need to have all the details of what people want from us.
We can work out the minutia. We can work out the minor details.
I call for a vote.
The vote's been called for. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Next item is the escrow, authorizing the creation of an escrow account for fresh flags flying, and appoint Mr. Michael Welsh as volunteer administrator of the escrow. The suggested motion is authorize the comptroller to establish an escrow account funded by donations and used solely for the purpose of purchasing flags for Fort Clark Springs Association, and to name Mr. Michael Welsh as the volunteer administrator of the escrow account. Do I have such?
I'll make that a motion.
Mr. Hope, Director Hope makes the motion.
Second.
Director Herman seconds. Now discussion or questions?
Now, is this strictly from members' donation funds? Is what will go into that account that he would be monitoring?
Yes, that's what it says. Any other questions?
I have a question. If we've got a line item for this purchase, why are we taking on the responsibility of managing additional funds and then allowing a member to manage those funds? Why can't Mr. Reisman have his escrow account and provide the donations upon request?
Yeah, I guess there is a line item, but this is kind of like, there's some kind of an old saying I recall about it looking a gift horse in the mouth. And Mr. Reisman has volunteered of his own volition to donate a large amount of money annually as long as he lives towards this project. He feels compelled or that he wants something he wants to do and he simply invites in anyone that would care to join him. He is not trying to push anybody into it at all. Mr. Welsh was initially concerned about how those funds would be used, and as a member he was incorporated in as a volunteer administrator to oversee and make sure that they're used appropriately. I believe if anyone has a better answer to your question, please.
The notes that I provided to the board does read that Mr. Welsh would be, has also contributed to the fund, and he has agreed to administer the escrow account. This means only that he will work with administration to monitor the account and order flags at the best price when needed, and I appreciate his volunteerism. As I do Mr. Reisman, who has pledged to provide $1,200 a year for the rest of his life for the purchase of flags, and I think he needs to be commended for that.
Yes.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's bad that he's doing that. I think it's great, but I think that also if we're going to start new escrow accounts just for someone to donate to, I mean, why don't we have a donation fund for that, or even add it into the line item that we've already got in the budget for that. Right. I just don't see that we need to get a brand new escrow account for this.
It's a matter of bookkeeping.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll call for a vote.
We can have a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Next we have the I guess I'm not too good with microphones. I usually speak loud enough, I don't need it. Next we have the Preservation Committee request to install an awning over the Dickman Hall balcony. And the suggested motion is moved to authorize the Historic Building and Repair Committee to put out a request for bids to purchase and install a metal awning over the Dickman Hall balcony. I believe that has to do with preventing some water leakage situation.
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion that we discuss this. I make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Isaacs. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Director Herman.
This was given to us last month at the board meeting. I forwarded everything to the members of the board. They would like to go ahead and try to get a check now to actually, or get the approval to put those bids out. They're going to try to get 3 bids. They're going to put it in Del Rio, Uvalde, and Bracketville papers. They will do 2 weeks. And then whatever bids they get at that point is, but I would like to see that we approve those funds at this meeting so they can go ahead with the bids on the cost of the awnings.
My understanding from the committee was that they simply want the approval to go out for bids, and then when they receive those bids, they will come back to the board and ask the board for approval of
Yeah, I
it.
just want them that they can go ahead and get the bids submitted.
That's what they're asking.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor?
Excuse me.
Passes unanimously.
Excuse me. I just wanted to carry out what Mr. Lawrence said. The idea is, as you said, is to get the permission to go out for the bids, put the ad in the newspaper, so forth. Then what will happen is the bids will come in to us, the committee. We will open those bids at a committee meeting, pick the bid that we think is the best, and then come forward to the board and present the winning bid to the board for their approval. And then they can give it up or down if they want to go ahead with that particular bid.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Good job, yeah.
Next item, segregation of the historic building preservation monies in a separate. Yeah, we voted.
I'm sorry, okay, you're right.
Passed unanimously.
Take it back.
All right. Next item, segregation of historic building preservation monies in separate sub-account within the restricted fund. And the suggested motion is moved to authorize the comptroller to segregate historic building preservation monies in a separate sub-account within the restricted fund.
So moved.
Okay, I have the motion by Director Herman. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, Mr. Holt, Director Holt seconds it for discussion.
Mr. President, if I can add, if I can talk. There is a checking account that contains approximately $18,000 in that account. And it's out there by itself. And there's only one signator on that account at this time. What we need to do is to roll those monies, which are dedicated for preservation. Those monies need to be rolled into, along with the other restricted fund monies dedicated to preservation fund, so that there's just one account and the whole thing can be accounted for daily. It's that simple. Rolling monies together.
Now, there has been a problem with balances being agreed upon because of these separate accounts. And you have two different people taking care of the same monies that are sitting in separate checking accounts, and plus it's questionable whether, in this case, probably no problem, but it's not probably a good idea to have all of our committees out there with association monies in their own little personal checking account and with total control over it, instead of having the association where you have an elected board that has control as opposed to an appointed one. And I could go on more, but I think you probably get the idea.
This was recommended by the CPA that we have hired, and we just kind of have to believe he knows what he's doing. And this is what his suggestion was. But what it does do, it takes away the fact that you're having to keep up with two accounts, even though the one account has not been touched in 4 years. So it's just, so there's more accountability, easier to make it for the treasurer of that account or that group, so they know what the actual monies are. Because it's been real hard to get some figures, and I hope we've got that straightened out with this statement that y'all just got.
So the dollar, it's right, $1 that goes from our assessments into this account, is that correct, or is it the $4?
It's one out of the 4, but there also is some donation monies from previous Fort Clark days over the years that have not been used yet because we were using the impound money first.
Okay.
So the money that is actually talking about is putting those donated funds into the actual restricted fund, so there's accountability for the funds all at one spot instead of having to look at two different things.
Okay, and then so future donations will go into that restricted fund account, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? I think we've already passed that part of our agenda, but you'll be free to come up and grill any one of us in a little bit, Bill. Next is the proposal for a facility rental use agreement. And actually, that will end up being a 3-parter, but 2 parts have already been approved. And in the packet, you have the first part that has all the rental amounts on, you already approved and had much input in. Then the next 2 pages are actually a proposal for the actual rental agreement that a renter would sign and fill out, and it's a modification of the existing one we have to bring it up to date and in line with what we have now. So the proposed motion would be move to adopt the proposed facility rental use agreement form.
Are we gonna make a motion to talk about this first?
You make a motion to,
Yes.
okay, do we have a second?
Yes.
Have a second from Director Herman. Questions?
I do not see anywhere on these new figures the deposit fee for any of these buildings. Is that somewhere? It used to be on the paperwork, but I'm not finding it.
There it was.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
And then there's one other thing on here that's got the star for members to use it. I don't really think that the green room at the golf course is a proper place for somebody to have a kid's birthday party.
No, it's not, and that's not provided for and not necessary here.
Well, it shows that
what you do need is when you have a couple of the golfers decide they want to go in and enter something in the computer, they need to go into the green room and sit down and do it, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, or they may grab a couple of beers out there and go in and sit down there.
That is the whole fact and what I'm saying, because it is starred as it is a facility for individuals. If it's not in use, that they could do something there. I just think that's not a proper place to try to let somebody have a kid's birthday party or something, because guys are there until 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, I would agree that there's nothing that is in these agreements that talks about the limitations for the facilities that are being deemed as free for the members. So all a member has to go off of is that there's an asterisk by this that says if it's not rented, you can use it for no charge. But then if you're going to have them sign this facility use agreement, there's nothing in here that dictates, well, as a member using this for free, here are the conditions to that. And I think that's something that we do need to be very explicit about.
Let me read what it actually says. It says, these facilities, if not rented, shall be available at no charge for use by individual members and a reasonable, as determined by management, number of the members' guests. So if it's a birthday party with 2 people or 3 or 4 people, I suppose they could go in and use it. But if it's a birthday party that's going to have 6, 8, 10 people there, they would be not allowed to use it at no charge. That would be up to management. I mean, we have to allow, I believe, some flexibility there and some trust in management's good sense and fairness.
Well, but also in line to be fair with our membership, we also need to outline that very clearly. These are the parameters that you're able to use this, whether you don't even have to say a birthday party or retirement party or whatever party, whatever your event is, here are the parameters to be able to utilize this for free.
Could you give me a suggestion, Maria, for what you think it should say in 1 or 2 sentences?
Well, I think that should have been proposed to us in this, because that's what we said we were going to have administration do. I mean, we said that we were going to wait for administration to bring us this and that we provide our feedback. My feedback is that we need to delineate what that use agreement is going to entail for someone wanting to use it for free. And you just said that we need to trust what administration is doing. Well, I'd like for administration to tell us so that we can post this and tell members, here's how you can use these amenities.
It says the member and a reasonable number of guests.
But whose definition is reasonable?
3 or 4?
That's not reasonable in my opinion.
You're not administration.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you just said.
As I said, Maria, please offer your solution. What should it say exactly? Specifically say. Should it say 3 members, 2 members, 1, no members, what?
My solution is, based on whatever reasonable recommendations the administration is suggesting, that needs to be written down in black and white. That's my suggestion, to include whatever parameters are for that green room.
Okay, we will, Mr. Lawrence, can we direct the administration to make a decision and then write it down and add it to this agreement? What a reasonable number of guests would be.
Happy to do it, Mr. Sullivan.
Debbie has a question too.
Also, we talked about that if I know we've talked about it, I know that we've discussed it, but if a person is using these buildings, it was agreed that they could not charge people to use the building but that's not in this.
That's on the 3rd page. That page was not here, but it's been approved, recorded, and
so we've already agreed to that in that previous
yes, that's already
resolution.
Okay, it's
not on this one.
Okay.
It just happens not to be stapled to this. That's part of it.
That was all my question, because I knew we had discussed it extensively.
And I have one more comment as well. At the last time that we had talked about this, I had asked a question that if, I'm using myself as an example, and I think I did in that last meeting too, if I preemptively booked one of these free rooms for Christmas for myself, and then someone comes in wanting to rent that facility, what would happen to me as the person that's got it for free? And it was said that that person would get trumped, the one wanting to pay for it would get trumped, and that also is not listed in here either.
It clearly states that if the facility is rented, you don't get to use it for free. So if a renter comes in, just because you asked for it months in advance doesn't change anything. If someone steps forward and wants to rent it, I suppose you could be offered the option to rent it in front of them.
That should be in here as well.
It is in there.
No, sir, it's not. In this use agreement, it is not in there that says, if you're using this facility for free and someone comes in to want to rent it, you will either A, be offered the option to rent it at that rate, or B, not be able to use it. That's not in here, and I think that needs to be in here as well.
Okay, your comment is noted. Any other questions or discussions?
My only thing is we need to put like 5 days before a holiday or something, that if somebody wants the building and then within 5 days or something, nobody rents it. I mean, you can't wait till the day of the event and somebody wants to rent it. I don't know, that would just not be respectful.
No.
Let me make a suggestion. I think any of you that think it should be something different in there, put it in writing and submit it, and we can approve it as an amendment or a change to this. But right now, we need to have something out there for people that are coming in tomorrow or Friday and want to rent a property and want to know how much it is, and we need something available. This will work. You know, what you're bringing up, the objections may be a problem here or there, you know, seldom. But we can do that, and then you can submit your recommended changes, and we can still make changes. This is not written and chiseled in stone. It's what we're going to have to work with now. And I did not see any other ideas submitted previously here. This is the only one. So I want to call the question. All those in favor of the motion?
With the recommended statement you just made.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't have to be part of the motion. That's obvious. You always have the
You
power
always
to
have
change
that.
something.
Yeah.
All right. Opposed? Yeah, one opposed.
Yeah, you can always
As long as it's amended and recognizable.
Yeah, put something together, be very happy and glad to receive it. We'll put it on the agenda, and then we can take a vote on making the changes.
Well, that's my whole point. Everything that we're talked about, when somebody comes in, they need the whole packet for information. They don't need a piece here, a piece there, and a piece here. It all needs to be in one thing, handed to anybody that wants to rent or use the facility.
That's what we're trying to do.
That's all I believe in.
Okay, the proposed format for town hall meeting is the next item.
You have a date for that?
October 9th, 6 p.m. October 9th, 6 p.m.
Here in this room, right?
Excuse me, Maria?
Location is here, right?
The location is the boardroom, correct. I would like to suggest and ask the board for their input to add a time limit of, say, time limit on questions of 3 minutes and a time limit on responses with 1 follow-up question allowed. What do you all think?
Well, my question to you is going to be, how long do you think this event is going to be, period? Is there a time limit in general for, is it 6 to 8, 6 to 9?
I think we need to vote to talk about this. We need to make a motion to talk about it. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. So then my question is, what is the actual time frame of this event? Is it 6 to 8, 6 to 9, 6 to 20, or 12 o'clock, or what is it?
6 until we're done. If you'd like to put a time limit on it, sure, go ahead.
I believe we need to put a time limit on it. That's a weekday.
I'm waiting.
Okay, then I'll say the same format as what was done in the candidate forum, and I think that was a 2 or 3 hour event.
I don't accept that. The candidates forum you had, the questions were filtered by 2 moderators that decided what questions would be asked and which questions would not be asked. This is a town hall meeting. I think the members deserve to be able to ask whatever questions they want without any filtering, and to be able to ask them themselves to step up to the microphone.
I didn't suggest anything about filtering. I was talking about a time limit.
Well, you said the same format as the candidates forum. That was the candidates forum.
Right, but it was a 2 or 3 hour event, and I think that's appropriate for something like this. But if not, then I would say that a board member that needs to leave should be afforded that opportunity to leave it, at which point that they can't be here any longer. So whatever you decide.
It's whatever the board decides. What do you think, a 6 to 8?
6 to 9, I put a limit on it, 6 to 9.
You're suggesting 9, John?
3 hours.
6 to 9
If
or...
we get too earlier than that, that's fine, but let's put a limit on it.
All
I would
right.
agree to that.
So,
So what if a board member cannot make it? I've got an airline ticket that I won't be here.
You got 2 of them?
it's not necessary.
But I would like to make the comment that on my Debbie Isaacs Treasurer's page, if you would, any questions you would like to ask of me, I will answer them on that page at that point in time.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. That would be great. And we understand that it's, that a board member cannot necessarily make every meeting, especially we've had so many of them between special meetings and regular meetings and the rest. Yes.
May I ask a question or interject? 6 to 9 means that you're going to be here till 9 o'clock, regardless. Whether you're done talking, whether questions have finished, you're still going to be here till 9, because I might want to come in at 8:30 or can't get off work until then. So I'm going to come here at 8:30 and you're done. So I would recommend that you simply say start at 6 o'clock until finished. And be here.
I ain't planning on being here till midnight.
Well, that's my...
Okay, well, we can say
Ain't gonna happen.
until finished or 9 p.m., whichever comes first.
There you go.
Yes.
That'll work.
And I heard that Dan said something a while ago about putting a limit on how long a person can stand up there and talk.
Yes, I did. I just threw out 3 minutes because you know, we're not gonna have filibusters there.
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't think we ought to have filibusters.
Seems to me 3 minutes is more than adequate to pose a question. And then allowing one follow-up question after they receive their answer, and if time permits, after everyone has had an opportunity, people could come back up and for a second go.
Does that 3 minutes include the director response to that question?
3 minutes would be just for the member to ask the question.
Oh.
We could put a limit on the director's response too, but I don't know if you want to do that.
No, I was just asking for that clarification. And I did have one more question. Is this town hall going to be recorded so that other members can see this later on the YouTube thing?
I believe we plan on recording it, don't we?
I think everything should be recorded.
Yep.
Yes. So we would now modify the suggested motion to adopt the town hall meeting format as proposed with a time constraint of 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or until finished. And each question will be limited to 3 minutes with one follow-up question allowed.
Are you gonna have sergeant at arms in case things kind of get out of hand to?
I would hope that we have civil adults participating.
Robert's Rules of Order say you're really supposed to have a sergeant at arms or something to help with the crowd.
I don't know. I'm just asking a question.
Maybe we can request the National Guard to come in.
That might not be bad. I'm not gonna be here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sure, you're gonna be up there in the air, safe.
We can have a security here.
All right.
Just a question.
Well, I think we'll probably have Matt here, I hope. All right, do I have a motion as was just outlined?
I just think the more that you can put in writing to everybody that comes to the meeting, there's no doubt of what's going to happen. That's all. I just think it needs to be specified. This is the rules. This is the way it'll be handled, and nobody will have a question as to what to expect.
Well, sure, because there's going to be a sign-up sheet that they will have to sign up on. So, all those in favor? No, we need the motion because the other motion was just to discuss. So, how do you get rid of your discussion motion? You vote to dissolve that?
That's all we do. We're not supposed to make a motion to talk. We're supposed to not talk about anything until a motion's made.
Well, I don't believe that's correct, but...
Well, I'll make another motion then that we vote on the discussion as to what we just had, that be put in writing and be given to everybody when they come into the meeting.
All right, do I have, okay, we have a motion and a second. We've already had the discussion. All those in favor? Unanimously approved. Okay, now we need to appoint a 5-member election committee. And that committee operates a little bit differently this year for the first time. In so much as in the past, the secretary was the automatic chairperson. Now the secretary simply monitors the committee. And each one of us was asked to be prepared to submit a member to serve on that committee. It's a 5-member committee. So starting with Maria, do you have a person of your choice?
No, I made a call out for anyone who wanted to volunteer, and there are no volunteers that want to do that.
Bill?
I haven't got anybody yet, no.
We need to do it here. I have asked Sandra Hagan to serve on the election committee and also to serve as the chairperson. Part of the reason for that is Not only that I recognize her competency, but also her experience, having served 5.5 years on the board and gone through a number of elections, because it's a very important committee. There's certain dates that have to be acknowledged and taken care of. You have to set those dates. You have to monitor a mailing process. So you really need somebody that's had some experience with it. So that was my choice with Sandra Hagan. Debbie, do you have someone?
Denny Stephenson.
Dean Stephenson?
Denny.
Yes.
Steffenson.
What was the first name?
Denny, D-N-E, Denny?
Dennis. Is it Dennis?
Well, I just know.
Her husband?
Yes.
Yeah,
Dennis,
Dennis.
D-E-N-I-S-E-N.
Okay, that gives us two. John, do you have anyone?
Mary Frances Cardinal.
We need two more. Is there anyone out in the audience? Charles?
Maybe you could tell them what is involved and how many meetings they'll have or anything. Maybe that would help them make a decision.
What's the time frame? What month?
Hang on.
Starts in October.
The work begins in October and it carries through the annual meeting
Yes, ma'am.
in March.
Thank you, Judy. We only need one more.
Can't get anybody else. except
There's-
I'm not going to be here in November.
That's the biggest month, isn't it?
You're not going to be here, but you volunteer.
Well, if it's in November, I'm not going to be here, so. Somebody else can do it, that's fine.
I guess to satisfy the board requirements, because we are, there, whose hand is up? Lisa?
Lisa there.
I don't know if that matters with community
Are you-
council. I would like to know the time constraints, though.
I couldn't hear you, but you volunteered, right?
The committee's purpose is to encourage association members to run for the board, to accept applications, to certify that those who wish to run have met the qualifications described herein, and be responsible for the security, preparation of a mailing of the ballots. That's the description of what this entails. We're doing the first part of it right now. We are creating the committee. That has to be done in September. Y'all will have meetings, somebody would have, the fort would have to allow all these people, and then y'all come together, then y'all decide your meeting dates and stuff. And there is, in your bylaws, is the qualifications of what y'all have to do.
Lisa?
I'll do it.
Oh,
I'll make sure that everybody has a conformed copy of that section from the bylaws.
thank you, Sandy. Lisa, you had your hand up again?
No.
No,
She just
just
volunteered.
verifying
I'm just
volunteer.
calling out John over there.
She just double volunteered.
Okay, do we have her for a volunteer?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all, we appreciate it. Okay, the motion will be to appoint Mrs. Sandy Hagan as chairperson of the FCSA Election Committee with the following members of that committee: Dean Stephenson, Mary Frances Partwell, Judy Winchell, and Lisa Vale. Would someone make that motion for me?
So moved.
Director Herman makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Director Hope seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. We now have a on the agenda, the employee health care insurance plan. And one of the reasons that we had to change the August 23rd from a workshop to a special meeting was in order to be able to adjourn into executive session and receive information. We took no action, really, because we wanted to make sure that Maria would have an opportunity to review that and offer her input or vote, as she was unable to attend that meeting. But it seems every year a different company comes forward with a different and better proposal. And the one that seems to be the best and is recommended was the Blue Cross Blue Shield, 3 separate possible plans we can consider. So with that, the suggested motion is moved to accept the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas proposal offering 3 optional health insurance plans to FCSA employees for a total estimated cost of $174,399.12. That's for the total year of the portion that the association would pay, and that's estimated, I believe, on 28 participants, if I recall right.
Yes.
Yes, I think.
Okay, so do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Director Herman makes a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, I second the motion. Now open to discussion.
I do have some questions. The first question I have is, how many employees do we have?
We have 52 at this, 50.
50 or 52?
50.
Okay. And my second question is, what is this percentage? Because when I was trying to figure out the numbers myself, and it seems that it's 90% that we pay. Is that accurate?
90%.
90? Is there a reason why we pay more than the national average? Is that like, how did that come about? Because, and I'm asking this, I have no experience with healthcare, and so I did a lot of research, given the time that I had to research. And when I went to see what the national average was, it's less than what we pay. So I'd be curious to know why we pay more than the national average.
These numbers are based on the health history of the association employees. The insurance companies will do an overview, an inventory, an assessment based on the history of the group itself, and then they make their offer. This is what our insurance agent was able to come up with as his recommendation as the best option. You'll note on the first column under United Healthcare, there was a 19% increase. And so he did some shopping about, and surprisingly, Blue Cross and Blue Shield picked us up again and made an offer of a proposal which gives the employee 3 different options from which to pick. But our cost would be the same as that, which is in that first column, the $174,399. I have no idea what the national average is. I don't know why we would be above or below that. I just don't have an answer to that.
Maybe could it be possibly taken into account on what we pay? In other words, if we're offering more compensation in the form of health care as opposed to hourly wage that type of thing.
And all the variances that go along with it with respect to the deductible, the co-insurance, the out-of-pocket pay, pharmaceutical costs, all of these things come into play when making a proposal.
But no, I understand all of that. I read very in depth about all of this. But my question is, who made the decision that we pay 90% of this as opposed to what the national average is for other small businesses? Because if we have 50 employees, then we barely meet that small employer
But not all of our employees have insurance. A lot of them did not elect to get insurance.
Right, and that was going to be my next question. Why is it going up from the 24 that we paid for last year to 28? Are more people opting in, or what is that projection for?
That is a projection. That's exactly what it is, a projection. He anticipated that there would be 28 rather than 24, and at the meeting he cautioned us that there would be a plus or minus 5% variance to that.
Well, I'm curious, Maria, what is the source of the national average of what percentage employers pay?
Sure, I can give it to you. It's the Kaiser Family Foundation 2018 Employer Health Benefits Survey. The national average is 82% for a single plan and 70% for a family plan. Okay. So we currently, if we're at 90% on both of those, we're 20% above average on family plans and 8% above average on single plans. So my question is, how did we get to that point?
What was that organization again?
The Kaiser Family Foundation.
Yeah, it's a private foundation.
So
we don't know what the criteria of their survey was, do we?
Well, I can print it and give it to you because it's on my computer still.
The question I think is being asked is, how is it that we arrived at the Fort paying 90% of the employees' health benefit?
Yes. Previous boards voted on it.
It is, the only answer I know is that it is historic. It's just been this way forever. So the question that I always hate the answer to is, well, it's always been done that way. So the question might be for the board, does it want to increase the coverage or decrease the coverage or benefits of the employees? That's something that the board could decide. But what is being proposed at this time is 90%.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Maria?
Well, I mean, kind of. It goes back to then, why aren't we assessing what the percentage is that we want to pay along with what plan we decide we want to go with? That's kind of rolls into that question.
And another thing to keep in mind also is the fact that the more people you sign up, which we're offering 3 different programs now, so the health savings account is adding something new to somebody that's 20 years old just going to work for us. They may not have the same needs as somebody 50 years old working for us. So that would be an option these people could actually get into, but we're offering 3 plans instead of 1 now. So with the insurance man that came out here and explained it to us, if we can get more people in there, that cost is going to go down. And that's where the 27, 28, 24 we have, or whatever comes in a projection of what we're going to have to pay. But again, like she says, who made the decision at 90%? I don't know.
Some of our employees, basically, based on what we pay them, can't even afford to pay the 10% and don't opt for the insurance because of it. Is there any further discussion or questions?
Oh, I have one more question. I didn't see this expense in our monthly profit and loss statement, but I see it in the fiscal year total. So do we pay this monthly, or is this something that we pay annually?
It's paid monthly.
Are we going to be seeing it in the monthly profit and loss?
I think you do see it in the monthly profit and loss.
I don't know. I might have been blind, but I didn't.
No, it's showing up in the fiscal year stats. It does not actually show up in our monthly profit and loss.
Okay.
I've asked Mr. Smolin several times why it hasn't. I don't know, but I'm well aware of it because I'm into these financials on a monthly basis.
Profit and loss for August. is a negative 57,553.
I see that, why that was a question I had, but Mr.
Because,
Smalley wasn't
yes, why is it that the health insurance shows a negative 55,000? Is because Mr. Smullen is doing a wonderful job. And he has just discovered that there was a double entry of some $78,000 in that health insurance line item, a double expenditure of $78,000. But after the July-August payments, it brought it to a negative 55,000. So in other words, Mr. Smullen is doing a marvelous job of finding these errors in our bookkeeping system, which is exactly why we needed a person of his caliber.
And it's not only in the insurance, it's also in the electric bills. There's several things that we have
There was another
discussed.
$55,000 that he found in double entries for the electricity. He's doing a splendid job. He has already paid for his own salary, I assure you.
All right, can we have a vote on the health insurance for the employees? The motion, I believe, was already made and seconded, so, yes. All right, all those in favor of adopting the Blue Cross under the motion made? All those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay, next is the fiscal year 2019 budget. And the suggested motion is move to approve the proposed budget submitted for fiscal year ending 2019. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Director Herman, a second.
Well, I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Director Isaacs.
There are some things, and I did in a couple of items were changed. The bottom line dollar for the year is just about the same, or is the same. No, I'm sorry, it is not the same. But
It should be the same, and Mr. Sullivan pointed out to me that there was probably an $800 miscalculation somewhere, and I haven't been able to find it since it was pointed out to me. We're talking about $800, it's not material.
yeah, it wasn't a big amount at all.
I did make the changes that you asked to be made, and that's why you'll see those, what was blank is now filled.
Exactly, and I did want to make that note. I did ask one more question, and I've been told, and that is on our impound fund and what we plan to do there, but that's got to have another meeting. And then I hope that that will also get out to the membership once we do that, as what's coming out of our restricted fund.
I'm waiting for that too. I can't wait for it.
Any other questions?
I do. I have some questions. I did watch the special meeting on it, so that was really helpful. And I did too notice that some of the numbers changed based on what I was given last time. But my first question is, of the 1,723 records that I was given of members, how many of those are delinquent?
I can't tell you. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, because I'd be curious to understand why there was no budget for delinquent recoveries in fiscal year 18 if we recovered money, and where the $21,720 is coming from delinquent accounts. Is this what we're projecting is going to be delinquent, or is this what is currently delinquent that we're trying to receive? Why is there nothing for fiscal year 18, but there's a projection for 19?
Because now we have a CPA, and the CPA is suggesting that we create a line item which shows the recoveries of delinquencies. That's a revenue line item. He's projecting 21,720, and that is based on a formula that he had put together.
Okay, so is that based on projections of people that are going to continue to accrue late fees, or projected of people that are going to refuse to pay assessments since they've increased? I mean, I'm just curious how that number came about, because it's a pretty big number.
We also have a person doing collections and sending out monthly collection notices, I believe should help with that figure too, so we've got an idea of what probably has been collected. I'm not saying, I don't know for sure, but I think that's probably got a part in it also.
Yes, ma'am, but...
He took into account, you're absolutely correct, and he took into account those people who are on payment plans, those people who have, whose delinquencies has been sent to the attorney for recovery, plus the efforts that Mr. Guzman is making. So based on his formula, his calculations, he made an assessment that the $21,720 could be projected as an additional revenue.
Well, I'd already asked Mr. Smullen those, so I have already checked into that, and that's what I was told, a one-on-one as the treasurer and the CPA.
Okay, so then that goes back to, did we not collect anything in fiscal year 18 that we had no budget for it, or was that just extra money?
These are budget comparisons, not actuals comparisons.
No, I understand what a budget is, but I'm just asking the question. The next question I have is...
I think, Maria, that's something that we want to track. That, yeah. With it being in this year, it's something that the CPA has actually said we need to kind of track that from year to year.
Okay.
And 2018 is the way that the budget was actually set up in the previous year. That's all that is lined up next to it. But it raises a good question. When you look at the budget 2018, that was formulated on supposed actuals of 2017. So the numbers listed under 2018 is what we used, probably wasn't very good. And that means that the numbers of 2018 are not very good. And so the numbers for 2019 is our best estimate, our best guess at this time. But then in another 6 months, 7 months, 8 months from now, we're going to come back and revisit it, because then we will have additional history with the eagle eye of a CPA to follow these things, to track these things. So I anticipate that y'all are going to be faced with budget revisions over the course of some months.
And that's what as the treasurer, and the reason I am so far into these figures is because with the new CPA, next year, not this fiscal year coming up, but next year we should be able to do a budget that is going to be closer to what we need from now on, with the guidance of a guy we've hired.
Exactly.
That's my hope.
But that doesn't happen in the first couple of months of the fiscal year. And this audit that I'll mention, this audit for fiscal year 2018 is probably going to still be pretty expensive. And yet, as things get cleaned up, it should be less expensive. And then the following year is when things will be different as night and day.
Exactly, and I did ask that question also at the budget meeting. Won't our auditing fees go down because now we've got a guy that got the credentials to help us do that?
Exactly. Right. So I'm just simply cautioning you all to accept the budget of 2019 line by line. We could pick them to death, but the figures that I'm offering here and that Mr. Smullen is offering here is our best estimate, and we will very likely be coming back to you for revisions.
Okay. As a treasurer, I'd like to see on a quarterly basis we announce this to our membership, where we're at with the budget and where we are, where we projected and where we are every quarter. I'd like to see something go out to the membership on where we really stand.
You know, the great thing about having someone of this caliber working for us is that as the books get cleaned up, then there is the potential for us to now share all of this information with the membership. Some members have a sense that we're trying to hide things, or that we don't want to be transparent. We want to give you all of the numbers, all of the exact numbers, in such a way that we're proud to put our signature on that. We can't do that right now, but we will.
So my next question is in recycling. There's no projected income slated for that, and I just was told today they were projecting between $100 and $5,000. So is there a reason why there's no best guess of what we can expect based on historical data from recycling?
The historical data might be the collection of a $5,000 check early last year. That's not a historical. I'm not going to project that we're going to have revenue that we're not likely to have, so.
Okay. I didn't have anything else for that side, so I don't know if anyone else has questions on that side.
All right, thank you.
Oh, no, I have questions on the back, though. Well, I wasn't here for that meeting, so I didn't get to ask questions. So my first question on the back is with regard to the payroll. We sent, and I say we because it's on Fort letterhead, we sent a letter to every member saying that the board finds our cash balance has steadily decreased over the last 3 years as expenses have continued to increase. On the video, it said, the video of this special meeting, it said that there's a 3% proposed salary raise across the board for all employees. I have an issue with the appearance that this looks like we raised assessments to give all of our employees a 3% raise across the board. Is there a reason why raises aren't earned by merit?
We pay our employees so very little that a 3% increase is just. It's justice. I'm thinking that it probably should be more than 3%. Now, if we are going to make savings, it doesn't need to be on the backs of the employees. Where we can look to save is where, for example, the decline in the cash balance is caused in part by the fact that the board has allowed, not this board, but previous boards have allowed the golf course operation to go into deficit by $75,000, $80,000, $90,000, $95,000 over the years, and gradually, because of deficit spending in that way, the cash balances have been decreased. I'm not saying it's all on the golf course, but I'm saying that's what we have to be looking at. How is it that we can get the job done, but not to go into deficit spending to do it? So I'm not sure that's answering your question, but I am saying that that I believe that the employees deserve at least a 3% increase cost of living.
Well, I appreciate that, but my concern is that if we're sending people these letters saying that we're noticing our cash balance is decreasing, we're paying 90% of their insurance, and then we're giving them a 3% increase, it does give the appearance that we are raising assessments to give raises, and that is the appearance that...
I don't believe that's apparent at all. We have, as you can see in front of you, the entire sheet of expenses, and they all have an impact and an influence on our total bottom line of profit and loss and of our cash balances. You can't just single out one individual expense and say that's the reason.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm
well,
saying
that's what it sounds like to me. You're saying that your quote was, I believe, it's apparent that we're raising the assessments in order to give the employees a raise.
I said that's the appearance that we're giving, because it's the appearance, it really is. And I did ask for a list of what the salaries were in fiscal year 18 versus 19, and my other question would be too, when was the last time that our employees were given a raise?
Well, this is a budget that encompasses a total whole operation, and I don't think that, and what we're trying to discuss and do here today, Maria, is to decide whether we're going to approve and adopt this budget. I don't know that we need to know individual salaries, what the guy mowing the grass is being paid, what the one picking up your rubbish is being paid. That is not necessary to make a decision on whether we want to accept this budget or not. I think you have to look at the whole picture.
Well, I am looking at the whole picture, and part of the whole picture includes a 3% raise for everybody across the board. Granted, I have not got a lot of civilian employment under my belt, But what I do know is that raises should be given by merit, not just across the board. That's my personal opinion, and I'm sure that people do not agree with me. But moving down to contract services, why can't we receive an itemized estimate similar to how now the lawn, where's that at? The lawn contract is itemized by itself. Is there a way we can start seeing the contract services in that same fashion where they're itemized?
No, that's not good bookkeeping. No, I'm not going to list each and every one of the line. For every contract to have another line item, no. That's not good bookkeeping. Now, if you want to know how much is this contract going to cost, how much is that contract, how much is this, then we can certainly provide that information to you without any problem whatsoever, but not to be included in the budget, not as a separate line item. You don't want more line items, you want fewer line items.
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I like to see everything itemized.
I have asked, and I know it can be done, I have asked Mr. Smullen, once he gets into the books a little closer, that possibly once a quarter we could see a bigger itemized thing, or at least twice a year. He says it can be done, and he's going to work towards that, but the board should be able to see what each individual unit, recreation, golf course, whatever.
Well,
he says he can do that, but it would be a stack this tall.
And that's fine. I'm okay reading.
And so what you're saying is absolutely correct, and that's the direction that we're heading, where we're able to. And I offered you a report which explains this. It was in your packet. What we're heading for is that you have full accounting, profit and loss for the motel, profit and loss for the RV, profit and loss for the Dickman Lounge. Each one of our revenue generating operations should have profit and loss, including the golf course, including the hunt operation. That's the direction we're moving into. This is just a very general budget, and this is not where those kinds of line items should go.
No, I agree, and I have already asked Mr. Smullen for it, and he said yes, it can be done. But you also know as well as I do, there's been some miscoding of things. So that's all got to be corrected, and whoever's doing the input needs to learn the codes. And we've got a problem. I know we do, you know we do, and we found some of those.
Right.
So that is another hope that I, as a treasurer, would like to see get corrected, and we're working on it.
There's where we're going.
Just point blank, we are working on it.
Yes.
And that would be my next question with supplies as well. I'd like to see this separated by department, because I don't think supplies are synonymous to every department. I think that each one has their own needs and own requirements, and I'd like to see that that wasn't itemized.
Again, that was another issue that I had talked to Mr. Smullen about, that we need to know paper supplies, nuts, bolts, that type of supplies. And yes, it can be done, but give me time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And then I'm just giving all these are questions I didn't get to ask in the meeting. I wasn't able to.
No, I realize that, but I have asked him one-on-one since the budget meeting, so.
I appreciate that. The next one I've got is community events and activities. While I do understand we no longer have someone working on those, I think that instead of saying that we're not going to provide funding for community events and activities, that we should possibly turn that into recreational improvements. Because when I brought up, gosh, I don't even remember when I brought it up, about repaving the basketball court and the tennis court, somebody said the estimate was $12,000, and it just so happens that this line item is $12,000. And I think that we should consider investing into our recreational improvements, and that line item.
That would be a discussion for another day with the repair and replacement plan. It doesn't go into the general fund.
That's not part of the budget, it's in the
Not part of the
10-year
operation.
repair and replacement plan.
It can be included, and I think I asked you at that time to put forth your recommendation to the board and see if it could be prioritized.
Okay. And my next question was, hold on, sorry. The parts, what kind of parts are projected as opposed to the supplies? Because in the meeting that I watched on YouTube, it said that the supplies included parts as well. So
you're talking about $1,000 allocation, and it is simply for whatever machinery reports, fan belts, things of that sort. If you want to call them supplies, we could easily do that, but it's immaterial in my estimation.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but in my mind, every penny counts. So in that supply category, when you if you're able to itemize that by department, I think that would be prudent to figure out where those parts go as well. And then the sand and seed, I did know that there was some discussion about whether that was enough or not, and I don't, is it realistic that it's now going to be $2,800 as opposed to the $1,000 that it was last time?
Maria, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to call a very short 5 or 10 minute break here for a restroom call for anyone that needs it.
Okay.
Then we will continue. All right.
I call for a vote.
Okay, we're reconvened now into the regular session. And we're going to continue with Maria and her questions on the budget.
I only have a couple more. On the auditing, it says annual 35,251. Why isn't that just put in the budget? It's just a question. So, like the line says auditing annual in parentheses 35,251 per year, but then the only thing that's budgeted is $35,000. So why don't we just put the actual number?
So you're concerned that in the next year, will it be an additional $251?
I'm asking the question.
I'm asking, is that your question?
My question is, if you know what the amount is, why is it not
We
in
know
there?
what the amount was last year. We do not know what the amount is next year, and budgets are estimates of,
Well, I understand what a budget is, but I'm just asking that question.
well, okay.
Let's see, what was the next one? The deer and plant life expense. I know that was kind of talked about, but the question was asked what is entailed with that purchase of $10,000, and that wasn't answered. So I'd like to know what those costs include.
I'm sorry, I don't have that minutia in front of me. It entails all of the expenses that is anticipated to operate the wildlife management program.
Would it also be possible that because of the unpredicted turnout and support that we had last year, that with all the additional activity there, you have additional feed and baiting and expense involved with, what do we double or triple what we expected, so it's going to increase the expenses.
What I found out from Mr. Smolin was those costs have been eat up in admin expenses instead of being
and that is what
put out. And it's feed, it's blinds, it's material to make blinds.
Yes.
That is
All
why
of these things.
now it's going into the hunt itself, because it was profitable. They should take the hit of what is coming to make it happen. So it had been into the admin expenses.
And as I explained that at the last meeting and in my notes that I sent directly to you, was that we were segregating costs that had not been applied to that line item.
Exactly.
Right, but the question was, what are those costs? And I mean,
It's feed,
to you
it's
that's
material.
minutia, but to me, as someone new to the board, I'd like to know what we have to spend our money on. And so, especially if it's all of membership money paying for that, I don't think that's inappropriate to ask those questions.
No, it brought in $125,000, I believe. The costs were eat up that they spent to make that $125,000 were eat up in admin costs, and now it's being broken up to deer and plant wildlife now.
And it's not much different from the cost that's being projected here.
Again, I have already asked that question since the budget meeting.
No, I appreciate it. And then my one last question pertains to the line item for elections / annual meeting and the postage. In the meeting that I watched the video on, it was said that there was postage for the election that was put into that postage amount. But if the election is separate from the annual meeting, why isn't there 2 line items that say what the election cost is that includes that postage and what the expense is for the annual meeting?
I'm not sure I follow that, but let me just say that I did promise, Ms. Debbie, I did promise that I would go back and look at those 2 numbers, and those are both good numbers. The 6,000 is actually, we spent just a little under $6,500 for the annual meeting, and the which included postage for the election, and then the $9,700 for postage is based on actuals. So I'm not changing either one of those numbers.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, but how are elections different from annual meeting? Why are they bunched together?
It's all in the same thing. It's all a process that leads and ends with the annual meeting.
Okay.
All right, any more questions, Maria?
Nope, that's all. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Call the vote.
Vote's been called. All those in favor of approving to adopt the budget as presented? All those opposed? 1 opposed? 4 for, it passes. At this point, we're going to adjourn into executive session.
Only one thing I would like to make known, that in early as we can, when we get into this budget, again, I would like to make sure we get those projected where we stand versus what we predicted, either quarterly or 6 months.
We could try it quarterly, but the more months we have under our belt, the more accurate we can be.
And that's the reason I say 6 months probably would give us a good idea.
Yeah, we'll shoot for that.
What time?
12 o'clock.
We're gonna go over there, we're gonna go here.
Oh, we're not gonna do 11 at all?
Over there.
Over there, over here.
Okay.
Not really. So you don't have a Yeti cup, that's embarrassing. What's that?
Christy, I'm gonna leave this to you.
Yes, sir. I haven't argued to it, it fits. I like that.
You know, I don't know if I did or not when I leave the annual.
Okay, we are now reconvening into regular open session from the executive session that we just left. The summary of our executive session was as follows. A vote was taken as to a misconduct charge against an employee, and the employee was exonerated and determined there was no misconduct. There was a sanction request put forward that was denied. There was no sanction taking place. There was a new contract for our executive officer that was approved and executed. There are also 2 properties that the fort has owned and that are in the process of negotiations. One had an offer made on it. There was a counter offer proposal went back that we hope will be accepted. And the second one was more of an inquiry as to how much we wanted for the property, and we put forth the offer, what we would sell it for on that. There were a number of letters that we received at the last minute this morning involving complaints against an employee, and they were moved to the October meeting because they are lengthy and it'll take some time to read them all and digest them, and the employee will have to be given an opportunity to rebut them or offer a counter to them. The next regular board meeting will be on Wednesday, October 17th at 9:30 a.m. in this boardroom. And that concludes the meeting for this month and for today. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? We are officially adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Later.
All right, see you.
I know, I've got to. I can.